I want to talk about some stuff that kind of relates to the work I'm doing. Actually taking courses to go to law school. Actually, I'm starting with paralegal studies, and then gonna go on to hopefully UCI or someplace like that. And but there is a lot of reasons why I'm studying law because well, I've been in the United States since '77, and all kinds of stuff has been happening since then with the U.S. and Iran, and the government here endlessly badmouth the Iranians, the Muslims, endlessly invade foreign countries, and well, I have been the recipient of the biggest spigot of shit, and all these bad mouthing, all these sanctions. It's kind of has filtered down with to general population, and it damages relationships, and usually like I'm the bad guy no matter what I do, and a lot of things with women and work, and they just fall apart even if I have the best of intentions or best of credentials. Well, in the 70s, it was a kind of racism that was pervading their schools, or um, they were hateful. I was like an outcast. I've always been an outcast. Well, I had a video. It was called "The Blackest Black Sheep," and then in the I had very hard time getting jobs with the legitimate companies, and all the jobs I could get in the East Coast, they were in the restaurants. They all sucked very bad, and I was very frequently fired, and or I don't really know. I was always the scapegoat. But then in the 90s and in 2000, it was more like personal relationships that completely fell apart. Usually, when things are normal in society, like between us Iranians, when there is a relationship like family or work, these relationships they kind of build on each other, and there is nothing that dramatic happening, and the relations deepen over time, and whatever relations I have with the Iranians or even other Muslims or Arabs or even Europeans, they're different. But the relations, either work or family, with the Americans, they go on like we started with the best of intentions, and then the relations go on after a little while. There's a sudden collapse, sudden things just completely go berserk, and well, my relation with my ex, she's white. It was very screwed up. It ended up in domestic violence, but uh, lately it's the all the insults that many white, especially white male, they just keep hurling down. While I was working in Laguna Beach as a cabbie, and I had to stop working there because there's all these fags. The city was kind of dominated by homosexuals, but they just would not stop coming around. I know a few of them. There was one that he would like in a town. He would take these short trips, and he would call the dispatch. I told the dispatch I don't want this customer anymore, but he kept coming back, and he would take very short trips, like a few dollars, all on credit card. then stop. A couple of hours later, a few more trips, the same. And always a very homosexual, very gay culture. All the discussion in the back of the taxi was just so geared towards making friends and making homosexual relations. It really was driving me off the wall because usually when I meet these jerks, it takes me a few hours to get back into my own self, and then he would go and come back another a few hours. It was like I couldn't get this shit out of my system, and finally I told dispatch I will not take any more phone calls or any more, and he I made the dispatch stop completely. Well, the thing about these people is they have such very condescending. I mean, I don't talk to the dog like that, but this wasn't the only one. There were like other ones, and then it kind of had expanded. And there were many of these shitheads. I had tough times. Finally, I was trying to switch out of Laguna Beach. Was trying to go back into airport, drive the shuttle, because the shuttle, like normal people come and use the. I see women or normal individuals, businessmen. So, but the airport business was kind of dying out because the bigger companies like Super Shuttle or Prime Time, they were taking over. So I kind of switched to sedan, and there were frequent complaints against me. I went and talked to the police in the Laguna Beach, and all the police seemed to know me too. And the police had started telling them that I do not owe them anything to service their call. If for some reason I didn't want them in my cabby, well, that wasn't illegal or immoral. They would just have to go get another cabby. Well, then well, I think you're gonna get in the drift of where I'm going. I hate fags. I do not want to socialize with them. But their personality is like a woman that when she doesn't get attention that she thinks she deserves, and she does something bad or violent. And there were a couple of what do you call it? They're not the doormen in the big hotels. They were like that, and there were frequent scuffles. And there was one in Surf and Sand. I would just really wanted to beat the shit out of him, but then it would be the end of the cab business. So that went on, and there were another cabbie was like that. There was just a lot of bad energy, and started carrying stun guns, and I have other instruments of torment like baton. But many of these guys, they were very bad health, especially the doorman and the cabbie. I was afraid if I stun this motherfucker, he might just die. He might have a heart attack. Usually if you use the stun gun, if it's short burst, it doesn't do the job, and if it's a lot, if a lot of electricity goes into this motherfucker, his heart might stop. And then also the other problem is that many white fags, they have become wealthy because of speculations or the jobs. Usually they work for a company, and the company doesn't want to lose this individual, and it's difficult to stop him, and it's difficult. You have to go sue the company, which I'm doing right now. I'm suing the landlord, but It's a sexual harassment, but they are usually wealthier, and they are also more sophisticated and smarter. I'm this is one of the reasons I'm studying law, to kind of stop that. I know some actors like Tom Cruise, they always have this problem. It got a lot worse when I acted in a few movies, and then it really got bad. When I was in Rancho Santa Margarita, there was this barber. He's such a motherfucker. He would collect all these military personnel. They come in and cut their hair. He would cut their hair, making all these comments. Finally, when I was the landlord, I think they were doing stuff with the landlord, and the landlord was on edge. She told me she wants to kick me out, and she had actually herself evicted another guy. He was running, I think, a porno site, and there were these three women there. I was kind of socializing with the women. I was very nice to them, but then the guy, I had never seen him before. He come out and he made throw huge scenes, and he called the cop, and the cop come in and was searching who has called him. All this shit. It's just like such bad energy, such endless like encounters. What this motherfucker wants? Why is he in my face? Like every time I open the door, and this went on and became a lot worse. Well, actually, Iranian culture usually, we are very diplomatic. We just try to get this guy out of my face, without getting violent. But then here the laws have changed, and they are not underclass and underdog like in Muslim countries, and they are a lot more aggressive and a lot more persistent. There is this fucking janitor, and he wouldn't stop coming around. He wouldn't stop. I finally gave him a note. Hey Jack, you need to stop being in my face. I'm studying law. I will ruin your. He went away for a week and then come back. Every time he goes away and comes back, he's more violent. Finally, there were like three encounters where he coming. He agitates so much and comes as if he's gonna just punch me right now, and then he backs out. He's like a passive aggressive motherfucker. And then and if I punch him or stun him, then these shitheads, they have so much clout with the police, and just we might both end up in jail, which I don't want to do. Then it just like the supply doesn't end. When this one is gone, then there is another one. So I'm resorting. I told the landlord, hey, I want these guys. There is a couple of other ones. I want their name and address. The landlord said, no, I'm not going to do that, because. But then I said, I'm going to sue you. Can I get their names? So I sued the landlord, and the landlord told me that I want you out of this property, which is exactly what happened, for the same reasons that I got kicked out of the other property. So it's like tortious interference with the landlord, with the cab company owners, with the shuttle company. Well, I've gotten into this state. Well, I called a couple of attorneys, and they usually see there is enough here for litigation of the company, at least the landlord, but there isn't enough to litigate these assholes that won't stop. because even if I succeed in litigation, then they don't have assets that you can attach on or irritate them to stop. So what I'm doing now, I'm litigating the the apartment owner, and well, if they lose in court, which is kind of likely, they're gonna lose money, and the judge might impose substantive or punitive damages, or give money for pain and suffering. But another thing that I really like, and it's happening now, is that I was watching the website for one of the courts, the local courts, I think Jamboree. They put a website that you can file for small claims court, or make motion like custody motion, or motion for visitation, or motion for restraining order. And this is very nice because you can fill out the forms. I think it allows you to use your credit card to file without having to actually print out. Well, it says you have to print out your forms. Then you can just appear in court with your documents, whatever. Well, then that's very nice. It resolves a lot of problems, because in the past, if I wanted to sue somebody, or somebody had irritated me to the point that I'm fighting the landlord, I'm fighting the company, then it would be difficult. Well, the legal system, the way it's set up, you have to go through attorneys, and these people, it's like a three-way circus. They want their cut, and also they will only take cases that there is substantial money. Well, then that leaves out a lot of cases and a lot of problems. Well, I think that in a society where the government and the courts have abdicated their moral responsibilities of protecting individuals, then all the problems that are falling through the cracks, they fall on the shoulders of just the average Joe or the poorer people, and they have to go file and do things on their own. But technologically, because of all the developments, they kind of have a democratizing effect. Just like the website I said about the California courts, is now possible to litigate people, or do all the stuff you need to do with courts. You have to study it, or be a little bit familiar what's happening, but you can file for small claims. You can file for many motions. There were like 9 different departments in there. I think one was a small claim, the other one was family, with a lot of the stuff that you have to file in the family court. They are not things that you can make money on, or is stuff that just very irritating. But a family, or a father or a mother, they have no choice but to put up this effort. And I think that when I had problem getting custody, I had to pay an attorney like $500 a month to go through the motion. It took a year and a half to do it, but hopefully when I study these things, the stuff that really is irritating and damaging, or causes a lot of problems, which is like dealing with fags, aggressive fags, dealing with companies that steal from payroll. That I have had one of those. Well, I used to go to industrial relation boards, a couple of companies that had stolen money, or from the payroll, or they never paid overtime, or they were short on the hours. And well, Board of Industrial Relations works, they usually send them a letter, and they have to come in because the fines are substantial. The companies usually just pay up, but these things they can now go into through the small claims court. Well, the reason I like the small claims court was, especially I'm going to use them with the violent fags, or the ones that just won't go away, is that once you get their names and the address where they can receive mail, then you can file for as little as $1. Then if you win the case, I think usually they will not show up. It will damage their credit, because all this shit goes into the credit report, and it's like a billboard declaring to the world, hey, this asshole is a violent sexual fag, and he has lost cases. So usually these characters, they have like a very beautiful work and family and everything, but they have this little dark side. They do little shit here and there, irritate or damage things, and then it's difficult, or was difficult, to prosecute them, because the extent of the damage was not significant. It was like damaged relations with the landlord or with the job company, or the cabbie can have to go get another cab. So all these upheavals, well, it's like they would externalize their evil habits, and somebody else end up paying for it. Then if they show up, then it's very embarrassing. Have to go over details like this, and family or friends might understand, hey, there is a problem, this guy is doing this stuff. Well, I think I'm gonna be doing this with this fucking janitor and the other assholes that I've been struggling with. So but the landlord, when I take him to court, I don't know if the judge is gonna compel him to disclose their names, or he's just gonna take the rap. He's like an enabler and enables these other assholes. I don't know. It was like he's like a dispatch in the taxi company, and I wasn't fighting with the fags. I was fighting more with the dispatch, telling the dispatch, hey, don't send this asshole here. I don't want him in my cab. Another problem I had in Laguna Beach, dealing with white fags, is that this doesn't happen a lot, but it did happen. Sometimes there is this feces, or the feces that were attached to their bottom or their pants. They would rub off on the back of the cab, and then once if it happens like in the Friday night, then this whole cab would be totally useless for that night, and it would be very costly, because in one Friday night, say I was hanging around Dirty Bird, I would be making $200-300 in one Friday night, and that's basically pay the rent of the cab. So when that would happen, the whole cab smelled like shit, and it's very difficult to get rid of it. You have to take the cab in and have the cab completely detailed. When it happened one time, I was taking the cab up the hill, and before I dropped these two, I told them, if you don't pay for the detail, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you. You will not be standing, because the cab has to is shut down and go and be serviced right now, I made them pay. That's all you can do with these characters. But with the homosexual doorman or violent other cabbie, it's like that. These little, you cannot beat them up. Usually they're older white fags, and if you beat them up, you might they might die. They might injure them to a point that become a criminal case against you. Well, there was a incident in the Jack in the Box, and I told one of them, "He's this stun gun. I'm gonna fry you if you don't get out of my face." And then he just ran away. Then the cops showed up, and the the stupid guy, he was about to arrest me, but then the cashier, I was friends with her, she came out and told him, hey, he didn't molest this guy. He was just doing all this stuff before the he had to get rid of him. Then I don't know if I'm working as security guard now, but I don't know if I want to work as a bouncer, because the amount of instigations that goes on with these characters is to such a level that at one point or another there will be a beating. I don't want to be twisting their heads or doing something to them that will make me liable. The security guard license itself is very valuable. Well, I still have the cab license. Well, somebody was looking at my cab license, and it was a very low number. It was old cab number. This is very valuable in itself. But the experience with these characters is very trying experience. Well, the one that really irritated me, it was I just was about to beat the living crap out of this guy, and he goes to the same temple. It's like the place is a holy place, is a Sufi temple, and I was talking to him. I usually am not so guarded with the other Iranians, especially if they're going to the temple. And he was chatting about getting places, and I was getting this building. I was getting a big room, so I kind of let him hang around. And I noticed that after every time I move, or he's trying to become roommate with me and spend more time. And then finally I went to the Rancho Santa Margarita offices. I got a couple of offices there, and then I was telling him these offices are relatively good. And after a week I noticed he came and got an office right next door, and like I told him, hey, I want my privacy. I want, why are you in my face 24/7? Finally, this went on, all this shit, and I figured out this guy is gay, and there were some sayings in the temple. Then he damaged the relations with the landlord, because I wanted him out of my face. I especially didn't want him next door, like. But I don't know. I think there is some predictions by Prophet Muhammad that in the end times there will be a lot of homosexuality. There's many. I find these people everywhere. They are so dedicated to this vile lifestyle, and they are so persistent to the point of violence. And then they're using the laws. You know, if I beat the crap out of them, then I'll be liable legally. And I don't know. The only thing that I think will work very well is use these websites to file small claims called like a dollar um, in the small claim court, charge him with sexual profiling, or no, sexual stalking, harassment, criminal harassment, and if they don't show up, you ruin their credits and post this shit at their door. Well, even with that, getting these guys their names and addresses, getting them right. I have to also hire the sheriff to take these papers to him, make sure that he receives it, and then it's very sad. Also, it costs money. It's damaging to normal relationships. Well, I was arguing and fighting with one of these tenants, this asshole landlord has, and he came out and he was throwing a scene and hollering. I went back into my room next door. Then he was just hollering, and then fighting, wanted a fist fight or something. Then he, I know these people when they can't get what they want, and they are like serial killers, or I don't know if you have seen those movies. They tend to throw up and or get deeply depressed or do all kinds of shit. So he went into the bathroom and he threw up into the bathroom, which is relatively small bathroom. Then the girl, there was a blonde girl next door. I was kind of say hi to her. She's pretty nice woman. First of all, she gets extremely jittery, and if there was any hope of becoming friends with her, is completely lost. Then she came out and she followed him to the bathroom. I came out after a little while. I was looking at it, and she was cleaning all his puke. And I asked her, "Why are you doing this? Why are you cleaning after this guy? He's so disgusting." She said, "No, I'm doing this for the landlord and this and that." And they damage relationship with women, because when these characters are in my face, I'm all really ready to go beat them up, but then it scares women, because women are naturally scared of violence, and the normal relations, either sexual or romantic, with a woman is more like loving, and like you gradually become friends and trust each other, and this kind of normal interaction is completely alien to what goes on with these violent facts. Another thing that they do is like they hire prostitutes, and they send the prostitute ahead, like the guy in Rancho Santa Margarita that was running a porn shop. I was talking to all these women, very nice women. It wasn't really the women were also working for him. It was like, what am I dealing with here? Or, well, I don't know myself to be interested in fucking a guy and a girl, or even if she comes in and she's very pretty, or it's his wife. Like, this is bizarre, and I'm going through this. I think that this historical period, it is like a symptom, like somebody has Kaposi sarcoma, is a stupid disease that shows up in people where all their T cells have died. It's like that. It's a symptom of much more greater death in the body of society than anything else. Well, even though this video is very bizarre, but its reality is a lot better to know and deal with than any philosophical discussion. Thank you very much for being in my YouTube channel. Please subscribe and leave a comment.